here in the panel, we have the most amazing professor in the media industry I have known, the college I have known, I have witnessed it. Uh, here they are, Kevin Element. Sir, how are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, and thank you for making up to this podcast. Yeah, I had one like as per my research, you have been here since last 20 years and 2 months to be specific.
Yeah.
So how that long journey has been for you in Confederation College?
It's wonderful. It's been a fantastic 20 years. I say to my friends, my family all the time, I feel amazingly blessed to have had the opportunity to teach at the school. Confederation College is just a wonderful environment. I mean, from accessing some of the world-class equipment, being able to work with some of the best minds. I think I've seen, hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000 or more students over. Coming out of industry the way I did, I knew that Northwestern Ontario and Thunder Bay could potentially grow into a very successful media mecca. And if I could get close to working with some of the brightest, youngest minds, then I would be able to hopefully support the growth of that. So working with the students that I've had the luxury of working with, the facilities are world-class. I've been able to teach in the topic areas that I'm most passionate about.
100%.
All I can say is that I'm super blessed.
Yeah. And how has been the student journey? Like, what this 20 years you have been interacted with n number of students. What was exceptional scenario you have been or interaction with some exceptional students you had? Do you remember any of those kind of?
That's a difficult question because I always say that everyone that I work with is on their own unique journey. I don't get to know everybody personally or even get to know exactly where they've gone afterwards. I try to keep a good idea of where they're headed through tools like LinkedIn, or even some students have tried to reach back to me. But I wouldn't necessarily put any one student up on a pedestal. Like they're all going through their own very unique journeys.
100%.
I have had some, moments of celebration, obviously, that one student, for example, came in to study, back in the day it was called multimedia production, and he wanted to learn how to be a web developer. And as I say to my students, you never really know where your journey is going to take you. Around third and fourth semester, he began to get really passionate about 3D and managed to get a job placement at a studio, Southern Ontario, called Rocket Science Visual Effects, and jumped in with both feet, learned their tools, and before long was doing production shots for television shows that were going to production. Got hired for a career with one of the top visual effects studios in Canada. That's one story. But there are many, many others. Yeah.
And we have talked a lot about DaVinci Resolve, but earlier, as far as my knowledge is concerned, Adobe Premiere Pro has been used for industry purposes. But nowadays, many of the big editors have been switching from Adobe Premiere to DaVinci. What could be the the industrial or technological reason for that? Like, you also are teaching us which way it is the best,
Yeah. So to be very clear, the bigger studios, Hollywood, Bollywood, the bigger production studios, they've leaned on a tool called Avid Pro and still do. So there's another software that was taught for a very long time here in our broadcast television program. And it's still considered to be the best editor. However, DaVinci has started to take its unique place in the market. It's not new. It's actually an ancient tool because of its color management. So for color grading, for color management, DaVinci's always been there as a tool that's, been very successful and very popular in the industry. Over time, to make their suite of tools better, they've slowly begun to buy companies. Maybe not necessarily companies, but technologies. So the first thing that they brought in was their editor. And I always chuckle because, the first time I opened up DaVinci, I brought in footage and then I opened up what they call the cut page. And I thought, I don't really like this very much because it's similar to
100%.
Final Cut. Now, Final Cut's awesome. And if you're into Final Cut, that's wonderful. It's just not my jam. I was always interested in Premiere. And then I looked closer at the buttons at the bottom and I found what's the edit page. And then I saw that they had adopted not only Final Cut's paradigm, but they've also adopted Premiere's paradigm. So I was like, wow, that's genius.
Integration.
So not only is the color piece there, which is the best in the industry, but now they've adopted two of the best other tools, Premiere and Final Cut. And they just then threw in Fusion, which is a fantastic motion graphics tool. And now they've got Fairlight, which is a top shelf audio editor. So when studios are always looking for cost savings measures, if you're paying into the Adobe Creative Cloud, then you get Premiere with it. After Effects is there, and then you've also got Audition, which is a sound engineering platform. I think it's taken the industry some time to really see the integration of all of the tools in DaVinci Resolve. How you can quickly jump from the edit page over into Fairlight, tweak your sound, realize you wanted to change the titles a bit, so you hop into Fusion and mess with your motion graphics, and then go back to editing sound. So as people began to understand the scope of the workflow inside of DaVinci and then looked at the price tag, right? It's free, and you're getting 3-4 software for free.
And also, if you want to, buy the studio, it's a one-time purchase, and you can, do it. Like right now, it's a 18.6 or something. It's an auto subtitle. Auto subtitle and all stuff is also generating and all.
Yep.
Yeah, with also they included new 7 or 9 languages as well. DaVinci. So yeah, that's a good upgrade.
Yeah.
I use that for my editing, and I'm
So like I encourage you,
yeah,
get yourself a Pocket 6K, 8K,
yeah,
and you'll get that version of Pro for free.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, it comes with the camera.
And also it comes with the first keyboard. It's around 600 US Canadian dollars, and with that also you can get the DaVinci free. So
keyboard.
Yeah.
$700 keyboard. Wow.
It's excellent.
All because it's got some colored keys on it.
100%.
I think what's happening with larger studios, and I can only really think of one production, which is the Dune movie. They knew that they were going to be using DaVinci Resolve for their color. So why not be able to hop in and out of the editing process and the color process at the same time? So they just decided to adopt it as their editor. The other thing that we're not really discussing much in class is that DaVinci Resolve is really a product under a parent company called Blackmagic.
Blackmagic, yeah.
And Blackmagic has a whole host of hardware solutions. So they have wonderful cameras, but they also have things like, media storage devices, and they've got switchers, and they've got editing keyboards, and colorization interfaces.
Yeah.
So I think as they've grown that enterprise level, specifically media storage, then industry can start to say, well, should we upgrade to the Avid hardware that we've been using for 20, 30 years for digital editing, or maybe we could purchase, upgrade into the hardware that is DaVinci's Blackmagic's storage facilities and things.
Okay.
Because when you're in a production of scale where you've got, thousands and thousands of hours of footage coming in, you need to vault that somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? You need to host that footage on servers so that everyone can gain access to it on a large team. We're not really working that way in class because everything's on our computers, local, so it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need some really industry strength hardware to push all that footage around in real time. A whole team can get access to it. So I think, Avid owned that. They owned that hardware piece for a very, very long time, and now Blackmagic is starting to get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also how we used to edit a different sort of small videos, and right now in our class for the beginners and all stuff, but how the whole film is, as you said that the film and all is thousands of GBs and all, and how they integrated it all, like editors knows that this is what director wants to convey to the audience. So how I never understand how editor and director's mind communicate that well.
It depends on a lot. There are some directors who really need to be in the editing bay and sit beside their editors. A few examples I can think of, like George Lucas, for example. He really wants to be hands-on. That control over the processes of editing can often muddy the waters, right? It can make things feel a little bit awkward. If you think back to the gentleman we saw in class, Walter Murch, who did Apocalypse Now as an editor. He's the kind of person who would be left well enough alone to tell his visual story.
Okay.
So the director is doing their best on location to get what they can into the can, we call it, into the shots.
Shots, yeah.
And then they take a lot of takes, right? Some directors can fly through the process depending on their team. They might take 4 shots. But if you think about the whole process, they've got storyboards in hand, they've got a script in hand. The script is telling, the team what they're trying to achieve. The action is well enough described. But if it's a film like Dune, for example, to keep using that example, almost every shot has been drawn by a professional artist. So they know on set what they want the shot to look like, especially if there's lots of visual effects.
Okay.
So you would end up having another person on set named the visual effects supervisor. And that person is so pivotal now to make sure that the director is aware of the limitations of what can happen in the visual effects space. Some of the best films have been directed by a visual effects supervisor. So somebody who can wear both of those hats. And I'm thinking about what I would argue is probably one of the best films of 2023 was Godzilla -1.
Oh, yeah.
That person was is a visual effects supervisor and had a vision, wrote the script, worked with a team of people to really hone that story, drew the storyboards with a team of brilliant artists. This was all out of Japan. Knew exactly what the limitations were. Every time he framed a shot, when he brought a camera out and put it on set, he knew exactly what the limits were of the technology. And when he did his job on location, he was saying to his actors, behave this way. And this is where I have so much respect for directors, because they need to be able to manipulate the situation in a way that makes everyone feel good, right?
Yeah.
So that they can gain the best performance out of all of their people.
The people.
And then he'll have to ask them, to do it again, and take 2 and take 3 and take 4. I've even heard of some directors that do a minimum of 12 takes per shot.
Oh.
A minimum of 12 takes. Right?
How that number is, means have you done some R&D or something for that 12 number? How it makes sense?
How do I come to that number?
Yeah.
Well, it's just teams of people that have been on set will come back and they'll say, for example, this director, we're amazed that it was what they call a shot ratio. So they'll say everything was a minimum of a 12-to-1 shooting ratio.
Okay.
So some directors, they keep it fast and furious, and they can move through their shots in 6 takes, and they'll take the best that they get and move on. Some people, I'm thinking of, like, for example, Martin Scorsese, who's meticulous in what he's doing with his filmmaking. He'll 16 takes. So that moment where you're having an actor deliver a line with the camera framing them in a very specific way, he's asking the actor to do it again and again, 16 times.
16 times.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So then all of that footage for every take, which relates back to a storyboard, which relates back to a moment in a script, then has to be vaulted right into now in a digital space. We're putting it up onto servers. So that's where the assistant editor comes into play, and their job is to literally, in Excel spreadsheets and in the tools that they use, they list all of the available shots. Directors will usually sit down on a daily basis and they'll look at what they call rushes. We're in a blessed time when we can look at rushes on location. So there might be a truck, a van or something that has a TV and a computer. So they shoot their 16 takes, and everyone breaks for lunch. They'll go back and they'll look at all of the shots that they got in the last 3 hours, and the director will say, nope, 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 yes, 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 nope, 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 nope. And right on location, they can literally delete, maybe 50% of those takes. Otherwise, they're left going back to the studio and looking at what they call dailies. So what did we get today? That's why they call them dailies.
Daily.
And the whole team will sit there, including the editor, potentially. And then the director, along with the editor, will say, well, scene 5, shot 14, take 3. Did you like that? I liked it. Like, does everybody like it? So that's what we'll agree upon. Check. Right? Now, really, what you have in the can, as we call it, what you have in that one shot is the moment of, roll sound, roll film, and then the slate comes down, action. Actor begins to deliver line, cut, we're done. So really you've got a very limited amount of latitude to set your in and out point for that clip. So it's been agreed upon probably before the editor even went into that process of editing to use that take. And Where it gets really interesting is when the editor begins to decide, well, that line of dialogue is being delivered for 15 seconds. I might want to take a moment to just cut to something else.
Okay.
And then cut back to that person, because maybe that shot is hanging for too long and its pace is too slow. So they do either B-roll, where they cut away to something that he's looking at or something he's imagining, or they might cut away to the other performer, the other actor that's delivering the next line, and then back.
Okay.
And the editor might just do that out of instinct as an artist. And when they're finished, then they have to go back to the director and say, let's watch this 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and you let me know how that feels. Like when I did that cutaway, that wasn't in the storyboard, or it wasn't in the script, right? So the editor has a lot more power over the visual storytelling than we often give them credit. Like, we go see the movie in the theaters and we see the director's name and it's like, yay, it's directed by this person. Director of photography gets celebrated and all of these people get celebrated, and then, the editor, like, not that exciting. But they do have the final say in how the eventual piece feels.
Output,
Yeah, because that's, the rhythm of all the cutting really gives you that visceral experience. Like, do we start to cut really quickly and then, it builds tension, or do we slow that down? So the editor, really does have a lot of final say. But like I said earlier, somebody by George Lucas's standards will come back into the editing bay and say, no, change that completely. George Lucas has even gone so far as to digitally change shots in post-production. So he'll look at a moment and say, I would like for that actor to come into frame 2 seconds later. So then he passes it off to his visual effects team, and they literally rotoscope out the actor and digitally remove that actor from the scene, and then reshoot that moment in post-production to get a different feeling out of it. I have a theory that when you do that kind of granular control over other people's art, then they get frustrated and it begins to get embedded into the media. It's a very esoteric theory that I have, that if you're full of joy when you're painting, your painting's going to feel joyous. If you're depressed, Van Gogh, for example, as a painter, went through periods of time where he was very depressed. You can look at the paintings and you feel sadness. Like something is, like the human soul is embedded somehow. They're great movies, but like Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, they don't feel as free. They don't feel as experimental. They don't feel as, it's a tough word to put my tongue around, but they don't feel as fun as episodes 4, 5, and 6. Before George Lucas had the money and power to really control his team. So by the time he had finished Return of the Jedi, he was rich, like billionaire, selling his toys. He had all this money, and then he waited, time passed, and then he came back to create the saga that was 1, 2, and 3, and it feels tight. It feels like there's something else about the film quality, like that.
Because the authority he put it was the bad deal.
It feels a little bit like there's
suppressed.
and like there's an
Yeah.
there's an emperor
Mhm.
controlling everything, right?
Okay.
Which is ironic because the
Yeah.
story's about this bad man named the
Massive.
emperor, but he himself became the emperor.
Playing the role in
The films
real
are
life.
awesome. They're
Yeah.
very good. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy the films, but they don't have that freedom and feeling of airiness that the first four did. When I think all the artists were just left to their devices to have fun and make cool stuff happen. Yeah.
And you are from media industry, but you're not active on social media or maybe different platforms and all stuff. Is it?
No.
Yeah. So was that an so I tried to, found many things around you, but I wasn't able to, let's say, apart from the emails and LinkedIn and stuff, I wasn't able to search enough about you and all stuff. So yeah, it's just that you have kept socially unavailable.
An enigma shrouded in a mystery. Sure.
Sure that.
I personally think social media is very dangerous. I don't like where it's taken our culture. I don't think it's good for us. So
Oh yeah.
maybe it's good for some, and that's great. But it's for one, it's a huge distraction, and I think it's a false. It's like a false reality. It's not.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not real. I play a lot of tabletop role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons, where you get together with your friends and you pretend to be another person.
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend that I'm a warrior, right? And that I'm bigger and stronger and more capable of doing,
Things. Yeah.
mighty things than I can in real life. I'm gonna role play.
Yeah. Imaginary situation.
I began to see that in Facebook. Like I knew people in real life, and then I would look at their Facebook profile and all of their pictures and all of the stories they wanted to tell and all of the things that they were saying politically or otherwise. It's not them.
Not them.
It's not them, right? So what is this place? I coined the phrase, it's a massively multiplayer online near-life role-playing game.
Oh man, oh man.
Where it's
Perfectly
near
defined.
life.
Yeah, near life, yeah, 100%.
But it's like, look at me, I'm so happy.
Happy, but yeah.
And people are just doom scrolling on these things, just trying to find meaning in it. I don't know.
So the last video I saw you on Instagram, it was minus 35 degree, and you shot at the so that's what I did. Means that was my plans coming here, and I did it like it was 3 a.m. At night, and I was unable to sleep to some reasons I don't know. Then I planned to do that particular thing. So I put up a hot water and in the bowl, and
Did it work?
yeah, it worked. I'll show you. It's on my Instagram. I'll show you.
So this is where I think some of the social networks are like they're totally fine. Like that's fun. It's like I'm gonna put a quick video of something cool on the internet, but I'm just not going to engage all of this like argumentative vitriol that's happening about politics and things like that on social media. I do look at Twitter every day. I think Twitter is a little bit better than, say, Facebook. I mean, it depends on how you use it, right? And how you can limit your time with it. But with Twitter, I follow things that I want to stay informed. Like I follow certain news places. I follow the right as much as I follow the left. That was a very difficult decision to make in a period of time where people are very divisive. But same with my YouTube. Like I subscribe to people who are on the far right, and I subscribe to people on the far left. And people in the centrist. I want to understand what's going on with the people, right? So I've become more of an observant person on social media than I have been a contributor to it, because I don't really know what I have necessarily to contribute. And I don't like Facebook for the fact that it's friends. And I
Here,
watch friends get into very, very heated debates. Like, for instance, I went online the day I got my vaccine,
uh-huh.
and I just posted a photo of myself. It was actually an amazing picture because I just had my phone and did a selfie.
Okay.
And the gentleman was about to put the needle in my arm. So I got a shot of motion blur of the needle.
Okay.
It looked really cool. So I put it up with me with my mask.
Wow.
And I just threw out the message to people like, we got it. We have the vaccine.
Vaccine.
Let's go get it. And the reaction from people below, the comments that came, I hadn't posted in 2 years or something like that. And I just tried Facebook again. And then people from my high school were telling me that I was crazy, that I shouldn't do that. And it was just like, this is why I don't use Facebook.
People, like, if there is a post, there is arguing something, people will argue in the comment section. Like, you don't follow the person you have commented the comment on the profile, but the people will argue based on the comments and opinions. I don't know why people have opinions about everything. They have different sort of opinions about everything.
Yeah.
So they'll start bullying each other in the comment section, and it is flooded with nonsense. Like,
it's dangerous. Is what it is. I've come to this conclusion a long time ago. I'm not interested in debate. I don't like debate. The word itself implies winning. Like two people on stage having a debate, and then, this person wins. How about conversation? Like, let's get to a point where we've got all of these wonderful tools where we can ask each other meaningful questions and have an open mind. Don't take sides. Realize you don't understand anything. Like, if you're a person, say, a truck driver in the United States, telling people what to do with their bodies, you're not a doctor.
Not a doctor.
I'm sorry. Like, you're not a doctor. Like, I'm not going to tell a truck driver how to change their oil.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Because it could be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Also, talking about danger.
Just try not to keep this political, but
yeah, 100%. That's why I want to. Yeah. So, talking about dangerous things, AI is one of the emerging danger. Let's first, what you see as AI as in danger, or maybe replicating people's job, or replacing people's job. So does it actually make that human sense? Like, as we have discussed in class also, that AI gives the generation what, or maybe the image what we want by typing the prompt. But what we have thought of, it have never been the exact same, the generative photo. So how it's been accurate, and what, as per you, what will be the future of AI?
Well, wow, that's a huge question.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's a good one. I think in one hand, it's going to be very positive for humanity. I'm imagining, so I try to do my best to stay on top of all of this, and I listen to a lot of opinion. I listen to a lot of scientists. I listen to a lot of artists who are talking about this, and then of course the engineers behind it. I have been a software engineer, so I do find it, like, from a computer programming perspective, to be really fascinating. But I'm also a graduate of visual arts school, so where does it fit in the space of design and art? And then of course there's the obvious questions, like what's it going to do to help us? And I just recently came across 2 AI programmers, one gentleman who had left the OpenAI company, and he's, I wouldn't say that he's necessarily for it or against it. He's just like he's a critic of artificial intelligence. And one of the things he mentioned was that recently, just using ChatGPT, somebody asked a quick question about a material like steel or iron. How do we create stainless steel? And the machine returned an answer that was not expected, that it had taken all of these disparate bits of information and it had figured out a new material. It proposed a new something, which they didn't expect ChatGPT, which is a generative text tool, to be capable of even doing that kind of, engineering.
Yeah.
I'd throw up the air quotes because I keep coming back to the concept, the idea of intent, right? What's the machine's intent? What's the human's intention? So the machine didn't have intent to give that answer. It just did. And everyone went, whoa. So what else is it aware of? There's no awareness, right? It's not an aware machine, but what else is it capable of solving for, like the cure for cancer, or how for us to get an atmosphere on Mars, or how do we,
So I'm right now playing, I've started playing Call of Duty Black Ops 3. So the story goes like we have a chip, like what this Elon Musk is doing, the Neuralink chip. With that chip. So in that game particularly, they have, it's in 2065 or something, we have reached that, and we have those chips in mind, and we can do wonders with that chip, and also is this AI is integrating the visual VFX industry. So what are they helping those editors in a let's say a betterment way, or maybe in a, replacing their jobs?
we haven't yet seen AI, not that I know of, and I've tried to stay on top of this, especially when it comes to media. We have not yet seen an AI edit film.
Okay.
But that's
100%.
making the decisions of when to put in and out points on clips and what are the best clips and do that job. I think therein lies the problem, is that the machine at this moment is incapable of determining what's good or bad. Right? That's a human thing. We decide we like that or we don't like that. It's a good
thing.
clip. It's a good painting. It's a good drawing. We're the qualitative creatures, thankfully. The machine has not yet arrived there. Will it get there? If we get into what they're calling, AGI, which is, artificial generalized intelligence, or it suddenly wakes up and it has its own conscience, then yeah, I'm actually all for that, and I can't wait for the day that I can ask the machine how it feels,
100%.
or just have that other pair of eyes.
Emotional values which they can't.
Because there's like, I listened to a gentleman, he is a professor of design at a US university, and he said some things that I disagree with, including that in 5 years from now, we're not going to be teaching design. We won't need to. The machine is going to be capable of doing all of that design for us. We'll just ask it a question, like, we need to generate a logo that looks like a check mark, and it will give us a Nike logo. Ta-da! So we don't need to know the design reasons behind whether or not that is, how it was,
But
how it came to that realization, because it understands all the rules of design, composition, and proximity and alignment and all those rules of design. And then it just spits out, 100 logos, and then we just say that's the one I like. So
it's right now I done it with Microsoft Designer. When you write prompts, and if I asked him designer to generate the logo for the same, so yeah, I have done. Means my Bluntcast logo is done by the same. I have used that thing, but yeah, I have also edited it my way to make it personal as per me. So yeah, those variations are there.
Yeah. And maybe like when I go back to those big, curing cancer and creating atmosphere on Mars, maybe it takes us 90% of the way there, or maybe it just shows us a different way of thinking. And interesting. And it becomes a source of inspiration. So I see there's a lot of positive in that. Where I get nervous is when culture begins to accept the output of the machine as being equivalent in quality to what humans are making. So I joke, right? I'm going to be that 98-year-old man in a rocking chair on his porch telling everyone that AI cannot make art. It can't. It just doesn't make art. And I've had debates with friends, and I respect their opinion. And in many ways, I agree. People will determine what's good or not good. So if somebody says that art that was generated is good, and I love it, then print it on poster paper and hang it on my wall. I'm not going to argue with that person, right? Then they consider that to be good. I call it design. Design serves a different purpose in the world than art, right? And I defend art probably because I spent $40,000 becoming an artist through visual arts school. And I know the toil, time, and hard work people put into becoming artists.
That process is what makes the good art.
And every art form, it doesn't matter if it's dance, all the way over to painting, to editing, which we were talking about earlier. There are decisions that humans make that are so, I don't know what, they're intimate. They're very intimate. So you think of that painter at 3 o'clock in the morning who has been working so hard on this canvas for 2 months. And there's this moment, it's almost done. And I don't know if you've ever watched the process of somebody create a painting.
Yeah, my brother is an artist, so he has drawn a whole picture on our wall with a pencil, with single pencil.
Right. But it's funny when you watch a painter go through the process, it's almost like ugly. What are they doing? I don't understand. It's ugly. And then they put, whoa, it's like, what? Right? And often, I'll take an artist like Rembrandt, for example. Like, he really played with light and dark. And his highlights, like, there's these conscious decisions to say, okay, I'm about to put a dab of white on each of the eyes. And that choice, when that highlight hits the eye and it's like, pow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's alive. That was a journey. There was an aesthetic. There was a philosophy that he took, himself through to then finish. And he followed all the rules. He used the grammar of painting. He created a lot of those rules himself that we now adopt into our artwork today, to then have that moment where, and trust me, as an artist, they're the scariest moments, because you might ruin your painting.
Yeah.
You might go, And it's like, oh no, the eye looks
done.
terrible.
Everything is done.
Scrape it off, and do it again and spend another 2 months. Now, could the AI push out an image and show you, okay, well, that's the portrait that I want to paint, and it knows all the rules of design. It understands, the stuff we don't really talk about, like chiaroscuro and serpentinata posing and all of these things, and puts that all into the final output of its render, its design, and then the design, you study it and paint from it. I don't know if there's anything wrong with that, because it's inspirational. It's meant to inspire. Now I'm beginning to see video footage that is looking frighteningly realistic, that has motion and people walking through streets and crowds in the background and buildings and reflections in puddles, and it's and they're good shots. Like they're still broken, like feet slide on the ground.
But
and
the way they are speeding up,
yeah. So I hope that we are, as humans, able to compartmentalize what is AI generated something versus what humans are generating, and have that value retained for the human endeavor. Because if we devalue the human creation, I think there's a moment where the AI invariably eats its own tail. It becomes this sort of dynamo effect of spiraling into having just one look. If you think about it, like all these things I'm describing, like Rembrandt and DaVinci and Picasso and all of these people who invented the rules of design have taught the machine. They taught the machine, right? So if all of a sudden we said, oh, we're done, and we just generated art with the computer, then we wouldn't have anything new, right? The machine would only be able to build off of what it's created in the past.
100%.
And then we're stuck at 2023.
Oh man.
Right?
Oh man. Yeah, actually, man, I have
Because,
never decided.
like,
I've never thought of it.
Like when Picasso came out in 1900 at the World's Fair, and he put up this painting on the wall, it broke brains. Like people, he unveiled it, and people were shocked. They call this phenomenon the shock of the new. It's like things are so new, when you look at it, you think it's ugly. Because you have nothing to refer to it. Now, 40 years later, you've seen that.
Makes sense now,
And it's aesthetically, you can appreciate it. We need humans making new things for the machine to learn from. So if we don't value the human creation and just simply begin to appreciate what the machine, this is all great, and that's where I'm going to spend my time and money, that money goes away from the people who need to survive to invent new rules and push us forward, right? And then we get stuck. Those people will end up saying, I can't survive as a painter. I'll just go and work at a factory. Right? And then that person who might be the next Picasso
is no more.
Doesn't create the new work to teach the machine what it can do in the future. And people are saying right now, that's never going to happen. I don't know. People are beginning to win art contests with generative art, AI art. With paintings that are sitting right beside original paintings that were created in the traditional manner. So we got to be, I think humans just need to be aware of the decisions that they're making and be, careful.
100%.
Do I have confidence in people that they're going to make those right decisions? I don't know. Time will invariably tell, I guess, as the old expression goes.
Which is your favorite film? Like the top notch, all time favorite.
What's my favorite film of all time?
Yeah, 100%.
Ex Machina.
Okay.
Hands down. Ex Machina.
Why it is your favorite? Any reason?
Well, it's a film about AI. Interestingly enough.
We are connecting.
It's a love story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horror story. It's a sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm.
It has some fascinating new approaches to filmmaking. And it's just, I don't know, it's the pace, the tone, the acting. I have been saying for years, I don't even believe that films can be made. I find it amazing that they even exist.
Mm-hmm.
For the fact that all of those moving parts have to fit together, right? And there's something about this film Ex Machina that, like, I can watch it again and again and again, and I'll see little moments that I missed before. Yeah, it's just this really, cerebral adventure about what if we do get to a point where the machine is awake.
Yeah.
It's sort of another, I'd hate to say it's like a Terminator story, but it's, it's that old tale of a machine waking up. But it's also about a man who runs a company similar to Google, right? So it's sort of like the paradigm is that the analog is between, like, Sergey from Google is this gentleman who's invented what he calls fluidware, which is the brain for his machines. And he takes a person out of the Google enterprise and he puts them on an island with this robot and says, you're going to go through the Turing test, which is the test that is used to determine whether or not humans can believe if a machine is actually alive or sentient. And I've always been, I would love to be this, to be able to do the Turing test. I've been on computers since I was a child.
Yeah.
I've imagined artificial generalized AI for my whole life, and I am so excited to connect with it, to talk to it.
100%.
And this is what the movie's about.
Yeah.
So,
what is your art piece, favorite art piece? You have been into design and stuff.
Favorite work of art?
Yeah.
Earth and everything on it.
Nice answer. I like it.
It's like people ask me what my favorite color is, and I say white. And they're like, why? And it's like, because it has all of the colors in it, right? It's the white.
We have learned that.
It's the white light spectrum. I like them all. How can I say?
Red, what are RGB? Red, green, and blue.
What's that?
RGB, red, green, and blue. Every color.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So that's it. I guess we are done. We have a long time.
Well, this was fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for
Appreciate it.
having us.